Welcome to @Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Let's get a refresh on the top Arizona news of the week.
Meanwhile, the Mother Road, Route 66, which spans northern Arizona, is getting some attention in Congress.
And Cronkite News reporter Bailey Vogt has a plan on a historic designation.
The song Standing on the Corner in Winslow, Arizona, and that's my district.
Arizona Representative Tom O'Halloran almost sang as he talked about the Route 66 National Historic Trail Designation Act. The bill establishes the iconic highway as a historic trail.
It's one of the great highways of America, one of the ways that we as a country got from the Chicago area all the way to the West Coast.
At a House committee hearing Wednesday, Bill Thomas, chairman of the Route 66 Road Ahead Partnership, said the road originally helped connect isolated areas.
It began as a means of economic development for small towns along it. It connected them and their rural farm areas to new markets.
Once the interstate was created, Route 66 impact faded away. Thomas said that this bill could bring tourism income for towns along the highway once again.
All of those towns up and down Route 66 can benefit economically from the road, and the fact that it would be designated as a National Historic Trail will bring focus to those efforts.
Thomas said another benefit would be helping travelers stay on the historic route.
National Historic Trail signage would help very much in that regard.
O'Halloran said that the chance to restore Route 66 is the reason he is co-sponsoring this bill.
Even today, there's people from all over the world that come to America to visit Route 66.
In Washington, Bailey Vogt, Cronkite News.
A Rutgers University study of the road's economic impact says Route 66 has brought tens of millions of dollars of economic investment and created thousands of tourism-related jobs along the 2,400-mile road.
According to the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have experienced domestic violence in their lifetime. Cronkite News reporter Courtney Malley takes a closer look at one particular group that feels are not getting the resources they need.
The coalition also says Native American women face domestic violence at rates much higher than the national average. This can be attributed to many factors, but I spoke to 3 women who say domestic violence in their community is due primarily to a lack of awareness.
And then that's when I heard my uncle say, I don't know how you're going to tell Kayla, but your mom didn't make it.
22-year-old Kayla White was just 12 years old when her mom was killed by her father.
The way she had things set up for my siblings and I, she knew something was going to happen to her.
Growing up, Kayla says she didn't realize she was seeing signs of domestic violence at home, and she's not the only one. Native American women have a 50% higher chance of facing domestic violence abuse than any other woman in the United States. And on average, Native Americans ages 12 and older experience nearly 6,000 sexual assaults per year, 25% of those committed by a close family member.
She didn't really want to say anything because she wanted to protect our family and our family name.
In many of the reservations, there's no outlets like counseling, therapy, none of that. It's basic programs.
These women say the high rates of domestic violence on Native American reservations are due to a lack of communication and a lack of resources, just like the women's shelter behind me.
There was no homes, there was no anything.
One organization, however, is providing help and relief. The Community Alliance Against Family Abuse is working toward creating more accessible and applicable resources for Native American reservations in southern Arizona.
One of our big concentrations is specifically on better serving the tribal communities, because we recognize, one of the biggest barriers to service right now is just access. Someone experiences sexual assault, say in Casa Grande or Maricopa, they actually have to be driven up to Scottsdale or to Mesa.
Although Native American communities are still experiencing domestic violence rates higher than average,
I would say they do have their own unique barriers that they face. Having the rural isolation, having the historical trauma, having potential substance use problems, as some of them didn't even have a name for sexual assault.
Townsend says they have a comprehensive plan for the next 3 years to hopefully change that.
Because back then it was just like, oh, this thing happened, this is gonna ruin my family. But the way I see it now is that it's made us stronger in a way.
Studies have shown domestic and sexual violence rates increase during times of stress, but the staff of the Community Alliance Against Family Abuse wants to emphasize that abuse is not a one-time act. For more resources on domestic violence relief, you can go to our website at cronkitenews.azpbs.org. In the Broadcast Center, Courtney Malley, Cronkite News.
More than 100 years have passed since Warren Ballpark opened in Bisbee, Arizona, but its history hasn't been forgotten. Cronkite News reporter Bridget Dowd traveled to Bisbee, where archaeology students are learning more about the historic field.
Warren Ballpark opened in 1909 and is the longest continuously running ballpark in America. Through a partnership with Cochise College and Bisbee High School, one University of Arizona professor is digging up Bisbee's past. While other students might spend their day off relaxing indoors, these young scientists are getting down in the dirt, looking for clues to Arizona's history.
I think it's important to have a connection to our past. It's always very important. I think a lot of people feel like that. And to be able to relate to where we came from. You know, who were our forefathers and what did they do, and how did we get to where we are today?
Robert Schoen, an associate professor of anthropology at the University of Arizona, says even though many famous ball players took to the field in Bisbee, he and his students are focused on the people who filled the stands here more than 100 years ago.
We're digging underneath where stands used to be, or right now we have trenches lined up just outside the grandstand to see if we can find anything that fans dropped during their experience and what that might say about them.
He and his team have already found several artifacts like a 1930s bus token and this old can top. Schoen says while the dig and its potential findings are interesting, more importantly, it's an opportunity for students to get hands-on experience, like Bisbee High School sophomore Cecilia Garcia.
I found a bone, but it wasn't a human bone, of course. But it was I think like a pig's bone or something, like someone was eating it or something like that, but it was pretty big. And we found like an orange crush bottle, and we could identify it. My grandfather said that he remembered that.
Schoen says the dig has enough funding to continue through the spring semester. Schoen says through the artifacts they can learn more about the local economy back then, as well as where products sold at the old concessions were manufactured. Bridget Dowd, Cronkite News.
Former Arizona Congresswoman Gabby Giffords was back on Capitol Hill today, where friends and former colleagues met to rename the Democratic Cloakroom in honor of her and the late Congressman Leo Ryan, both victims of targeted violence. Cronkite News reporter Trevor Fay is live in our Washington newsroom after attending the event. Trevor?
Gabby Giffords returned to Washington today to have a cloakroom named in her honor. It's been more than 5 years since she walked the halls of Congress, but that has not decreased the admiration that people around here have for the former Tucson Congresswoman.
A bipartisan crowd of about 100 turned out to honor Giffords, who was shot in a 2011 assassination attempt. For Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, the memory of that day still brings back emotions.
I immediately jumped in my car and drove toward Tucson, only to hear on the way the erroneous report that Gabby had passed on.
6 people were killed in that attack and 13 wounded, including Giffords, who admitted to the crowd that she still has difficulty speaking to this day. But speak she did.
I'm still fighting to make the world a better place, and you can too. Get involved with your community. Be a leader, set an example.
The naming ceremony honored Giffords and slain California Congressman Leo J. Ryan Jr. This week marks the 39th anniversary of his assassination while investigating the Jonestown cult compound in Guyana. A former member of Giffords' staff said that being recognized alongside Ryan means a lot to the former Congresswoman.
She's incredibly honored to share the naming of the cloakroom with Congressman Ryan, who was also committed to representing his constituents.
This is the second room in the Capitol to be named in honor of a victim of that shooting. Giffords staffer Gabe Zimmerman, who died in the attack, was also honored in 2011. Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz said there are very few rooms in the Capitol building named to honor individuals. Schultz, a longtime friend of Giffords, said Giffords deserves it.
It's recognition of what she meant to this institution, what she meant to the people of Arizona, I think it symbolizes her integrity and her goodness.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, who led the ceremony, says Giffords continues to awe with her exceptional courage and efforts to build a better America. Giffords said in a statement that while her time in Congress is over, she'll never stop serving the American people.
I'm working hard, lots of therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and yoga too. But my spirit's strong as ever.
In a statement released by her organization, Giffords says that she hopes all future conversations in the cloakroom will help inspire action that leads to a brighter and safer future. Live in Washington, Trevor Fay, Cronkite News.
At a time when some parts of the Latino community feel attacked and lacking in resources, One Valley Clinic has dedicated itself to giving hope to those immigrants who do not have access to health care coverage.
Cronkite News reporter Alex Valdez shows us how this center is offering care and support to its patients. Alex?
It can be daunting to try to get health care when someone doesn't speak the language or doesn't have the legal status to navigate an already complicated system. The mission of Phoenix Allies for Community Health Clinic is to cut through all that red tape and simply provide much needed and often not found medical care.
Everywhere you go, you feel that position that pretty much everybody is against everybody. You come over here and you don't feel that.
When Luis Edgar Chavez realized he needed medical care, he didn't know where to turn to. But a chance encounter brought him here to the Phoenix Allies for Community Health Clinic, which treats patients like Chavez, who was undocumented.
One day I was feeling really sick on the day, so they gave me some kind of like emergencies help with an IV.
Seems simple enough, but for certain parts of the immigrant community, finances, paperwork, or proper documentation can be roadblocks to getting the health care they need. But at Potch, that's not the case. The clinic located in West Phoenix has its doors open to whomever may need it, regardless of their status. The clinic is primarily run by volunteers and medical students, with certified doctors doing occasional rounds. It's funded 100% through donations. Potch currently provides healthcare free of cost to the immigrant community. Immigrants often have trouble obtaining insurance or other healthcare assistance provided by the government.
A lot of immigrants are here on visas and they have a green card.
McMullen says Potch treats many chronic diseases among the immigrant community,
like hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol.
For patients like Chavez, a place like Potch not only provides him with medical care, it also gives peace of mind.
Like way easier to come over here and get health treatment than trying to go to a regular hospital, other clinics.
Potch is one of 3 Valley clinics that currently treats both documented and undocumented immigrants free of charge, with the number of patients they are able to see related to the amount of monetary donations they do receive. In the broadcast center, Alex Valdez, Cronkite News.
These days, cyber crimes can wreak havoc in more ways than we think. From fraudulent charges on a credit card to shutting down entire neighborhoods, nobody is safe from a cyber attack. And Kirika Omernia went to the grand opening of the Arizona Cyberwarfare range today to find out one important way to protect against these attacks.
Experts say that in Arizona alone, there are 7,200 cyber jobs available. People who go to the range can figure out just what it takes to get a job in this field.
We have a huge cybersecurity skills gap, but most people that are in the cybersecurity industry are so bad at their jobs that if they were in any other job, they would be arrested or indicted for fraud.
Brett Scott is the co-founder of the Arizona Cyberwarfare range. His company teamed up with Grand Canyon University to educate the public about cybersecurity. Scott says the range is available for anyone from a mom who wants to protect her kids to someone who wants to launch a career in the industry.
Right now, our enemies have it over us, and if we want to survive, we must get more people in this fight, capable cyber warriors.
I'm actually a security analyst at McKesson, so I work in the Security Operations Center there.
Nick Flahiff volunteers at the range. As an information technology professional, he says he doesn't fear the future of his career.
The amount of open jobs, they need people so badly, so they're willing to, this is a field you don't need a college degree. You don't need any certifications. Really, all you need is hands-on experience.
While Flahiff did not go to college, Carissa Nolan took a different path. She majors in information technology at GCU, and she discovered her love of cybersecurity in high school after her teacher was locked out of a computer.
I told him, I was like, well, I can try to get into it if like it's not technically allowed, but if you're okay with it and you won't like get me in trouble, yeah, I'll do it.
She now hopes to stop people who use that skill with bad intentions. Scott stresses the importance of people filling these jobs and what could happen if they don't.
Better brush up on your foreign language skills because we're not going to have a country anymore.
The range is free to use for anyone with an interest in this career. In the control room in Carrico Marina, Cronkite News.
The stretch of westbound US 60 between Rural Road and Interstate 10 is ranked third for the highest number of freeway accidents in the Phoenix metro area. Sydney Eisenberg joins us now with how the Arizona Department of Transportation and City of Tempe is taking steps to lower those numbers.
That's right, Blakely. And while ADOT doesn't have a solution quite yet, they're trying to test to see if closing the Mill Avenue on-ramp will help lower the number of accidents in that area.
The US 60 between I-10 and Rural Road sees a lot of traffic and a lot of accidents. That's why the Arizona Department of Transportation closed the westbound US 60 on-ramp at Mill Avenue yesterday to see how it affects the number of accidents that occur on that busy stretch of the freeway.
In a recent evaluation, ADOT says that more than half of drivers who would enter using this westbound on-ramp would often cut across several lanes of traffic trying to get onto the I-10 going eastbound. It was during those lane changes where many accidents would occur.
In the past 3 years, there have been 672 crashes in that area. 2 of those crashes were fatal. After the study is finished, ADOT will work with the City of Tempe to come up with the proper solution. That could be anything from more signage to changing the design of the on-ramp.
It could come down to saying, do we require the traffic getting on at Mill Avenue to stay to the right and actually use the ramp toward westbound I-10 only?
Until a solution is found, ADOT spokesman Doug Ninsel says drivers should take it upon themselves to stay safe.
If you're in this stretch, you need to be ready to slow down. You need to be very cautious about lane changes that are taking place.
For now, the westbound US 60 on-ramp at Mill Avenue will be closed until 11 p.m. this Saturday. Drivers can still use the Rural Road on-ramp in order to get onto the US 60 westbound.
ADOT says they won't know the results of that study until next year.
Yesterday, Arizona Cardinals running back David Johnson went to the Boys and Girls Club for a charity event to help low-income youth. Cronkite Sports reporter Ryan Curry shows how Johnson used ping pong to promote positive play and help kids stay active.
Ping pong. It can be as competitive as an Olympic event or as casual as a simple backyard game. But Arizona Cardinals running back David Johnson, who is currently out for the season with a wrist injury, sees the game as an opportunity to encourage kids at the Metro Phoenix Boys and Girls Club to stay active.
It lifts my spirits a lot. It makes me, appreciate the platform that I have, being able to come out here and just make kids excited and just have fun with them. Biggest thing. And, me with the down year, not being able to play, it just, makes me happy again to be out here and put some smiles on their faces.
Johnson injured his left wrist at the beginning of the football season. That keeps him away from the field and allows him to do more charitable work, like come here to the Boys and Girls Club and play some ping pong.
I got the cast off. I've been playing though since, you only got to use one hand to play ping pong. So I've been trying to get ready for this event. I was excited to come out here and just be active, have fun with the kids.
In a Players Tribune article last year, Johnson wrote about being bullied growing up and admitted that he was scared to play with other kids. Now he uses his position as a professional football player to encourage children in lower-income neighborhoods to stay positive and have fun.
There's something really special about those athletes when they come out and they're really genuine. They know where they came from. They want to give back to their community. He's just one that maintains character. When he's here, he comes by himself. He doesn't come with an entire entourage. He comes and he plays with the kids, and he's the real deal.
The Boys and Girls Club said Johnson wants to come back next year. However, after dodgeball last year and ping pong yesterday, it's up in the air what game he wants to play when he returns. In Phoenix, Ryan Curry, Cronkite News.
Job and internship interviews can sometimes be intimidating, especially when the interview takes place over dinner. The Be a Leader Foundation and Blue Cross Blue Shield teamed up to host an etiquette dinner for college students across the valley last night. Reporter Nicole Gutierrez shows us how students are learning more than the basic business manners.
Tight grip. Handshakes. Silverware.
So eating is a quiet, unobtrusive.
And table manners are just some of the things college students are being exposed to.
I don't know anything about this.
Omo Kumara is one of the many college students here to learn how to potentially make good impressions on employers. What you see here is an etiquette class.
To help students begin to think about how they present themselves for their future clients, for future employers, all that kind of stuff, to help them to kind of understand what is appropriate to do, what is not appropriate to do.
Students that attend the etiquette dinner not only learn what fork and what knife to use and when to use them, but they also learn that the food isn't the most important part of a dinner.
85% of what employers really look at is how people can socialize with people more than the skills themselves.
I think now if I go to another business event, I will know how to handle myself, how to eat and how to behave and what to wear before even going there.
College coordinator Rachel Olson says it's not just what's on your resume that can land you a job.
It's really about having the confidence to sit around a table with people that are interviewing you or that you're trying to impress.
Confidence these students can take to the table. In Phoenix, Nicole Gutierrez, Cronkite News.
Schnepp Farms is the largest grower of peaches in Arizona, but this year some of the blossoms are popping up too soon. Emily Bloom is in Queen Creek with more on why our weather may be to blame.
Here in Arizona, we've had an unusually warm fall so far, and Schnepp Farms is dealing with the effects of that. Every November, Schnepp Farms owners wrap up their pumpkin festival and begin preparing for holiday events.
We just have an issue of the trees being confused.
But this year,
we've got a tiny little peach that's growing inside of there.
They're seeing something a bit unusual.
My wife was out here. We have a wedding venue nearby, and so she was walking through the orchard and said, "Oh my gosh!" She calls me up on the phone and says, "Mark, there's some bloom out here." And I said, "Nah, it can't be."
Schnepp says the blossoms aren't supposed to come until February.
I started walking and realized it wasn't just an isolated one tree incident. It's scattered throughout the orchard.
He says usually by this time of year we've had a cold snap that puts the trees to sleep for the winter. But meteorologist Paul Enigith says so far we've had above normal temps for the month of November.
October had no measurable rainfall here in Phoenix, and that was the second time that has happened.
The second time in as long as records have been kept. Enigith says as of right now we're on track to have the warmest year ever.
I grew up here on the farm. I've been growing peaches for 40 years. I've never seen bloom this time of year before.
Fortunately, the farm has about 5,000 peach trees, so your supply for the upcoming spring isn't entirely on the line. But as for the confused trees,
it's already bloomed. The blossoms have dried up and gone. This area is not going to bloom again, so we've lost the crop of peaches on this part of the tree.
Schnepp and his wife have been watching the trees closely, and they haven't noticed any more blooms, so they're hoping the trees are now dormant.
I mean, they look good. It's just the wrong time of year.
To make up for the lack of rain that we've seen over the past couple of months, Schnepp has been watering this entire area. In Queen Creek, Emily Bloom, Cronkite News.
Arizona PBS congratulates Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon, on his 2017 induction to the Emmy Silver Circle Society. We're honored to be your friends and colleagues as we celebrate your 25 years of broadcasting excellence.
Now, here's an @Cronkite News Pick of the Week, a favorite from the Cronkite News staff.
During the mass shooting in Las Vegas, concert goers became first responders, helping to treat the wounded until ambulances arrived. If you found yourself in this situation, would you know what to do? Reporter Drew Marine takes us through training to stop the bleed.
When there's an emergency, the first rule of thumb is to call 911.
However, the time it takes for EMS and that help to arrive could be 1, 3, 5, or even longer minutes.
It only takes 5 minutes for someone to bleed out, which is why it's important bystanders know how to apply tourniquets and pack wounds before help arrives. And that's part of the instruction through the Stop the Bleed program at St. Luke's Medical Center in Phoenix.
And I'm going to cinch it down here. And then once I have it cinched to this point, then I'm just going to turn that wind this rod over and over and over again until he says ow.
Once the bleeding has stopped, it's time for CPR.
And you already controlled the bleeding, but now you need to circulate what oxygen is in the blood to those vital organs, especially the brain. Okay? So the goal is 100 compressions per minute. You just keep going fast and hard.
With recent mass casualty disasters like Hurricane Maria and the Las Vegas shooting, students like Taylor Blair think these skills are essential.
I just think that it's kind of good for everybody to know, just in case a kind of situation comes up. I can definitely show others for sure. Like, I'm going to try and share that with my family, maybe a couple friends, and kind of just spread the word a little bit.
The Stop the Bleed campaign was launched by President Barack Obama and the White House in 2015.
Reapplying pressure until you've got it all.
In Phoenix, Drew Marine, Cronkite News.
The next Stop the Bleed class will be on January 19th, 2018, when St. Luke's expects its new education center to be open.
Cronkite News tracks your likes, tweets, and shares from all our social sites to bring you this special at Cronkite News, our weekly refresh. Join the conversation so you choose the news. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and log on to cronkitenews.azpbs.org for top Arizona stories anytime.